Okay,
Is
let's,
this the same link for Jeff's meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
okay, so, Jay Sema, he's going to put up the email I sent out, which is kind of the topic of this evening. And I don't know if Sonober, you would feel like reading this at all or not. You can pass if you like.
Sure, Jeff. Late night chat, September the 11th, 10 p.m. EST. Topic: Intimations of Baba. Dear folks of Baba, this topic was the suggestion of two dear friends of mine, and they have helped in framing it. Were there hints in your earlier life that foreshadowed your coming one day to Baba? As a child, did you ever experience something so unique that there was no logical explanation for it? So you just kept it to yourself, and years later it dawned on you that Baba had his hands in it? Are you familiar with the quote, "Coincidences are God's way of performing miracles anonymously"? That some of the events in your life were not just random, but were orchestrated by some unseen presence? Is it possible that you might even have a memory of Baba himself actually appearing in your earlier life in some way, in dreams, visions, or in messages? Did you have, as some have felt, a conviction that Jesus was actually in the world again and wondered how that could be? Did you have premonitions of things that eventually came to pass, and which at the time you accepted as normal until you became aware of Baba? Have you observed people who impressed you as having some special gift, and now you wonder if or how they might have been connected to Baba? Do you feel that Baba has inserted little personal touches in your life that only you seem to resonate with and that help you to keep going in spite of all difficulties? As a child, did you sense God's presence sometimes, even feel watched by Him, and wonder if you might one day receive a more tangible communication with Him? Did you have a sense of having a blessed destiny, a future that was not reflected in your usual experience and understanding of life? In His love, Jeff.
So, um, so anyway, that's the topic. You know, if you can, it'd be interesting to hear any little hints that you had in your life in growing up that now looking back you can say Baba was had his hand in your destiny. Now I know, like Goer, she she grew up with Baba, so she doesn't have any hints. She kind of fell right into it. But maybe you can remember something of your father and little hints that he might have gotten in in as he before he came to Baba. But anyway, anybody want to venture out? Oh,
I do. Yeah, when I was a little baby, well, I guess like a toddler, 2 or 3 years old, I almost died. I was in the hospital, and they had to give me intravenous fluids or something. I don't know what they did. But when I came home, they said I was lying in my crib, and I started singing, "Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so." So I think I have that connection very early on.
anything along the way, kind of growing up through school and everything, any hints that foreshadowed um, your coming to Baba at a later point?
I don't, I don't remember
Uh,
that incident.
yeah. Okay. Well, if you think of
Nice.
something
Can
later.
I speak? My hand is up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Not working. I don't think so much of premonitions when I was little, but now, whenever I am hearing about Baba's life, what was I doing then? It's just a thrill to me to know that so much of my life, Baba was walking the earth. So that's I would call it more of a demolition. It's very explosive, to know he was just a few miles away from me in 56. I mean, it's just so exciting, his life. And that's what I think of when I read the topic, because I thought,
Yeah.
yeah,
They're in, they're in Los Angeles, you mean?
yeah, Los Angeles, yeah. And there were this is one of the pictures I could show. There were 4 pictures in the newspaper. Can you see it?
Yeah, down a little bit. Bring it down.
Down.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. 4 beautiful pictures right in the newspaper. And they're so, it's just like, our life goes back and forward. It's like Bubba's bringing us into the present. So, anytime I think of my past, I thought, what was Baba doing? What was he doing?
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
A
Say,
lot
Baba.
of, yeah, a lot of people do the same thing. What they were doing at a certain time in
Yeah.
their life when Baba was here or there. Yeah.
Jeff,
Can,
can I go next? Is Keldwin?
Say that again.
This is Keldwin. Could I go next?
Yeah. You're next.
Okay. So on Baba's birthday in 1986, I had a suicide date and a plan. I had stopped drinking about a week or 2 earlier, and a whole series of events happened that got me to my first AA meeting. But my anniversary date of Alcoholics Anonymous that I take, because of later on, I had a sponsor who was a Baba lover who I went to I'll tell you that in a minute. But February 25th was also my Quaker mentor's birthday and my father's birthday. And it's my AA anniversary. The other thing I want to say is that this picture of Baba, oh God, I have to start my video.
Yeah.
When I was on my very first visit to the Baba Center, this picture was on the side table in the Lakeview cabin that I was staying in with my sponsor. And I had a dream. It's my only Baba dream. And in my dream, Mara pulled Baba's pigtail out and cut it off and handed it to me. And I woke up, and I'll never forget that dream. It was remarkable. And then I got like 102 fever and had to stay in bed every day. And that story of that trip, I don't need to go into anymore. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was, wait a minute, I'm getting old here. Okay, Baba reading. Okay, I had a question. Does anybody know of a Baba reading group and it's on Zoom, where people don't just read the literature, but they actually talk about what it means to them? I would like to be on such a group, and I know you have Effort and Grace some weeks, but that would be late for me on a Sunday night. I would be on Zoom for a really long time.
You could volunteer to start one, Keldwin.
I'm not up to doing that and sharing my screen. Sorry, that's beyond me. Anyway,
we may start up Effort and Grace, which was at 5:30 on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
But we're still that's still hanging there.
Do you talk about it when you have those meetings? Okay, great. Would you be sure to let me know about that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll do.
Super. I'm gonna go to bed. I've had a pretty interesting, intense day. This was the first time I was on. Oh, yeah, I talked about suicide. And earlier on Gail's call, and my name used to be Gail, by the way. And the suicide reading was really poignant for me because, by Baba's grace, who I didn't even know about, I am alive today, thank. Oh, I have one other thing. There's a story in AA that when Baba was in California, he flew to New York City. He drove around Towns Hospital where Bill Wilson was getting sober. Bill had his white light experience and Baba came home. I now, the way that the originators of AA used to work the 11 steps sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. The way they used to do that in AA was to write a letter to God and then read it to their sponsor. And I have been writing Baba letters for many, many years and sharing them with my sponsors so that, you know, if my ego gets dressed up in its Baba suit, I can get some clarity. So thanks so much.
Oh, thank
This
you,
was great.
Carolyn. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, lovely.
Hi.
Jay Baba.
Jay Bob. Yeah,
I wanted to share an experience. Can you hear me?
yeah, perfectly.
Okay. Thanks. Jay Baba, everyone.
Yeah.
I wanted to share an experience that actually just happened like 4 days ago. But there's a little backstory to it, so I'll try to be concise. And that over a year ago, I got diagnosed with a blood disorder that kind of it morphed into leukemia. And so, as you can imagine, I have been trying to hold on to Baba even more this last year or so. And especially with Zoom, I've just felt closer to Baba than ever. So, but really trying to hold on. And during this time, around 5 months ago, I decided to get a new picture, of Baba, which I don't know about you guys, but I've had the same pictures up for a long, long time. And I ordered a new picture, a big picture, beautiful frame, the whole thing. It went above my bed. And what happened was I kind of spontaneously did a gesture of putting my hand up, my left hand up to the Baba picture. In just, for me, it was like saying, I need you, Baba. Please help me. I need you. And I would even imagine him holding my hand. Sometimes I would put my other hand in my hand. So that's the backdrop of this story. So last Thursday or 4 days ago, I go into a outpatient surgery for a lymph node removal, and it's kind of serious because with the leukemia, my platelets are really low, and that's what makes you clot. And so they gave me transfusions of 2 bags of platelets, and I was in pre-op for a couple hours. And so right before I go into surgery, this nurse comes and talks to me from the surgery room, and she comes over and she introduces herself, and she just kind of preps me, it's going to be very kind of chaotic, and she kind of warns me. But the thing is, she has this lovely Southern accent that just reminded me so much of Wendy. And I just felt, this warmth. It was just like, oh my God. So there's that piece. And then sure enough, 5 minutes later, I'm whisked into the OR, and I'm kind of distracted because a lot's going on. But the same nurse holds my left hand, and my IV's in my hand. So I'm thinking, be careful. But she's holding my hand, and it's just such a metaphor for my life. I'm still kind of distracted. She's loving me, and I'm distracted looking at the doctors and all this and that, but she's not letting go. And she's just pouring love on me. And then she starts stroking my arm. And then I just forgot everything else. And I just felt these waves of love. I mean, bolts of love coming from her. And she's like, her eyes are fixed on me. Maybe she does it with everyone. But it was just like waves and waves of love. And before I knew it, I was out, and I woke up, and everything actually went smoothly. And afterwards, in reflecting, I thought, oh, what a great nurse. She's like an angel. She's so great. And then I thought, that's Baba. That's Baba working through her. And it was just, I've had so many incidences through this whole experience of being diagnosed with this, of Baba reminded me that he's with me, but this was a huge one. And it just was really, really humbling, actually. It just was so humbling And I just feel we're so blessed. We are so blessed to have Baba and to really know that he's with us. So,
Baba.
Jay
Yeah.
Baba.
Irene, beautiful. Wow. Yeah, I know. We we get reduced to our knees, and he's there.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I forgot to say one thing that I almost cried. I almost burst into tears when I really started feeling the waves, and I had the clear oxygen mask on, and I just kind of, she saw me almost wanting to cry, and I whispered thank you, and she just kept on going. So Baba is amazing. Jay Baba.
Yeah, beautiful. Very, very touching.
Mm.
That's our Baba.
Buzz.
Want me to go, Jeff?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, this is an old story. I was raised Catholic. At around 7 years old, you do something called making your first Holy Communion. You have to go to confession. And I went to confession, and a couple of minutes after confession, my uncle, who was a priest, said, "Buzzy, is that you?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, you can't tell my parents any of this stuff, can you?" So, so, I mean, what do you do? Well, at 7 years old, you haven't really done anything wrong. So, anyway, I got this penance, and I went out into the church and kneeled before a statue of Jesus. And rather than doing my penance, I said, "What the hell good is this sitting before a statue? I want to know you." And that was in 1954. And the next weekend, my auntie lived next to the Dimples. And the next weekend, 3B told me about Baba. And of course, everything else that Lud had brought back from Three Incredible Weeks. And we used to joke about that, but Lud, just before he died, told me that he said, "I know you and 3B have been joking about this for years, but I want to tell you that I was standing right behind 3B when she told you about Baba, and I was 7 years old." And I said, "Lud, what good is that? I don't remember anything." And he goes, "It doesn't matter." He said, "The reality is that Baba's Nazar has been on you since that day." So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Buzz, let me ask you then, from 7 until you kind of say actively started following Baba. Anything along the way there that nudged you, or any kind of hints or foreshadowing of Baba as you went through your teenage years, early 20s?
Nothing specific until 67 when Ginger and I started reading Baba's books. The only thing that we have to say about that is that we did not know in 67 when we started reading Baba's books that he was alive. We didn't know he had passed until 69. So we regret that we didn't try and get a hold of him. But no, I led a really normal childhood. There weren't
Yeah,
anything like that. But
no kind of flashes. Yeah,
anyway, but at least he listened to my prayers saying, "What good is this?" And then told me about his name the next weekend. So
yeah,
yeah, that was enough.
yeah. Early recruit.
Yeah.
I remember when I broke my leg, the doctor came and told me he was from Myrtle Beach. And I ended up telling him all about the Baba Center before my surgery. It just felt like a really wonderful coincidence.
Yeah. Oh,
Tony. Tony.
Yes, Jay Baba. Um, I always tend to think that all my Baba stories started on January 31st, 1969, but I had to really think about tonight's subject, and I just made notes while I was sitting here. There were a few things. One, my mother took me. My father died when I was 9. I was 6 years older than my younger brother, and she took me to the 64-65 World Fair pretty much every weekend during the summers when it was on. And we went to see all these pavilions, and it was magnificent. We saw the Pietà, Michelangelo, and lots of things. But one day, she wanted to go and see an exhibit at the House of American Interiors. And we got there, and on the second floor, there was a free water dispenser that had 7-Up in it, and I was like 12 years old. And so you could get as much free 7-Up as you wanted, and we had one or two. We went to the third floor. My mother was looking at all of these living rooms, and it's really boring. And I said, why don't I go down and get us some more 7-Up? And I went down, and for years after, I had this sense that something happened there when I was at the 7-Up machine. And years later, I saw the picture of the Baba exhibit at the World's Fair. It was on the second floor of the American Interiors building. And I have a memory, I don't know if it's real or not, but I have a memory of going over there and reading some of the things, and then looking up at this woman who was on duty, and her giving me this kind of really interesting smile, reading the universal message. And then maybe she said something and I forgot all about it. When my confirmation, I grew up Catholic, and the confirmation, the bishop comes to your local church, and you wait online, and you bow down, and he slaps you on both cheeks. And when he does that, the dogma is that the Holy Spirit descends upon you, and that's how you are confirmed. And I went to catechism, I knew all of this stuff, and I didn't expect much of it. Even communion, which I had done, it was something, it was meaningful, but it was not unusual. But when I got there, and I'm kneeling, and there's a row of other kids, and he gets to me, and he slaps me, and he does something or other, I felt something come into me. And it was like this burst of energy. And it was extraordinary. And I felt like I'm smiling now. I was smiling there. I feel like I'm saying this right to you, J. Seaman, because you're on the screen in front of me. Let's see. So I went home and I'll put it on gallery. So I went home and I told my mother, I said, when I got my confirmation, something actually happened. And she just said, well, something's supposed to happen. And it was clear she had no idea. So I knew that there was this something from God that happened at that point. I got more enthusiastic about saying the rosary, which is a kind of an involved prayer, but when you do it the way they taught us, you picture some scene in the life of Jesus, and there are 5 scenes in it, some event in the life of Jesus. And while you're by rote saying these prayers, you're meditating, you're picturing yourself in that event in the life of Jesus. So I felt a natural, strong connection with the Christ. He would be alive in this thing with me, and when at some point, let's see, something came up in my life, I was probably about 16, and it was disturbing. And I kind of knew that something was going to happen. And I went straight. It was like I didn't have to do rosary or anything else. I went straight to him in prayer, and I said, you can't let this happen. And I don't want to give too much away, but the story in this book that I just published of my Baba story was triggered by that prayer. I only realized that 10 years after coming to Baba. Let's see, the Joe Pine. I used to watch the Joe Pine and Alan Burke shows on TV, and I know that Rick Chapman and those guys were all on there talking about Baba, and I never missed an episode, but I don't remember seeing them. After Baba dropped his body, there were lots of things, but one or two came to mind. I was on my front porch. I had something had happened that made it clear that I had to turn my life completely over to find the truth about something. And so I was on the porch, front porch, talking to my next door neighbor. I'm maybe 17 years old, 16 and a half. And we're talking about God, and he's talking about atheism. And I said, well, you know, I can understand certainly an agnostic to say, I don't know. But I was trying to be really open minded. And I said, well, it's possible there's no God. And when I said this, that same burst that came at my confirmation went like, but it was kind of like, you talking about me? Now, Baba had already dropped his body and released everything that went with that great event. But the other thing that happened also shortly after was I went to see a few months later in May. Baba dropped his body in January 31st. In May, the Jefferson Airplane were playing a free concert at Central Park. And I used to always go for communion, and you had to go to confession beforehand. And they had times for kids and times for the adults. And I was sort of in the in-between age, you know. And I thought, well, I'll just go at the adult time. So I went to see the Jefferson Airplane. It was so good. And I came back and I went to the church because you have to have confession before you can get communion on Sunday. And Monsignor Schaffner, this big, down-to-earth kind of guy, gruff, wearing a big purple robe and a big sash, had taken his sash out, and he was walking along the perimeter of the inside of the church, chasing all the kids who had come at the adult time, chasing them out. And I thought, well, I'm not going to wait to see if he considers it okay for me to be here. And I just left, and I walked home, and from being a very Catholic kid and into the whole church's thing, it was so clear to me that no man could come, no person could come between me and God. If I'm going to have this, I can't have my communion with God because you've decided I shouldn't be there then. I said, no. And I hardly went back to church again. I didn't drop Jesus. But so these were all these things. But after Baba dropped his body, he'd already come to me at that point. So those are not exactly the topic of this.
No, that is. It's perfect.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping people would share, you know, things along the way that were little hints that Baba was going to be in their life.
But by the time he dropped his body, he had already come into my life dramatically, and I was on a quest that he had put me on, though I didn't know it was him. So if it's for me, the prior to and after are different things. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Donna and Ken.
Hi, I didn't know what the topic was, and I just come on a little late, and then Tony stole my story. Can you hear me, guys? I'm not seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Show how he plagiarized your story. You know, tell us.
Yeah, I don't. So in I'm not sure it was 64 or 65. I had the second cousin lived on Long Island, and I was 18, I guess. And so, of course, the New York World's Fair. So we went to the New York World's Fair, and I saw the Pieta. It was very strange. I remember. Do you remember? There was like a moving sidewalk, and you went in front of these blue lights all around. Yeah, and but other than that, I don't remember much. Except I had this thought that stuck in my head. I remember going down this area, and there was a sign for the American Interiors building. And I thought, well, there's not going to be anything there I want to see. And, you know, we went on our way. And it was only till, again, a number of years later after I came to Baba, and then I heard that that was where the Baba booth was. And it just was amazing that of all these things I saw, this was the thought that stuck in my mind. There's a building I don't want to see. I mean, explain that. It was like Baba telling me he knew about me before I knew about him. That's what it seemed like. You know, that he kept that thought in mind, that passing thought. There was something, there was a link there, I guess. but I wasn't ready for it. I had to go. I had to go through, you know, a few things yet before I was ready to hear his name. And even then, I wasn't quite ready to hear it. But I saw his name in photo in 1967 in a hippie paper, and then had my strong contact, which I only learned a few years ago. It was actually on my birthday, my 23rd birthday in 1968, in November, when I was picked up off the street and taken to the Harry Kenmore meeting, when Harry had just literally come back from being with Baba 2 days before. So that's another story.
Yeah, well, tell that story, because it's yeah. You're kind of wandering around in New York, and
Yeah, well, you know, preparations again. I'd gone out to California, sort of dropped out and gone out there, went through the psychedelic thing, got into TM, you know, had this experience that made me think, well, maybe there was a higher consciousness. And that was sort of in my head. And I was kind of a Taoist, you know, at that point, in the sense that I sensed there was a higher nature or a spirit behind everything, but it was kind of an unconscious Taoist kind of, you know, that was my conception. And I was probably going to visit my cousin who went to Brown University. And so I was just passing through New York and had nowhere to spend the night. The bus wasn't until the next morning. So I was wandering around Manhattan. You know, I never lived there, so I'd only visited a few times, checking out different things or whatever. And sitting on some church steps, I guess it was about 7:45 in the evening. And these two fellows walked by and stopped and asked me, what time, do you know what time it was? And I was still sort of super hippie at the time, you know, beard, long hair, big old coat. And I just sort of laughed and said no. And they paused for a second and said, would you like to go to a meeting? So, you know, it's sort of random on the streets of Manhattan, apparently random. You know, I think it was 6th Avenue. And I said, sure, I had nothing else to do. Okay. And we start going down the street and they start telling me about Meher Baba. And as I said, I'd seen his name in picture, but I had no context really. You know, I was vaguely aware he was a spiritual teacher, I guess. And the fellow starts telling me he's God in human form. You know, just, I guess they were all fired up at that point, all of these young Baba lovers. You know, they didn't pull any punches. They didn't try to ease me in or anything. And I had seen, you know, the Hare Krishnas and some other groups out in California and was kind of leery of groups and stuff. And I immediately, my thought was, oh, another cult, you know. It's like, we're all God, you know, I was my Taoist philosophy. And as I'm thinking that, one of them looks, the furthest one away, looks around the fellow between us as we're rushing down the street to get to this meeting on time. And he says, I know we're all God, but he really is God. And it was like he'd read my mind, you know. So it was like, whoa, maybe they're not just a naive, you know, fundamentalist cult following some other guru or something. Exactly. And anyway, we get to the meeting and it was Harry Kenmore just come back from, and I'm not sure if it was a society meeting or the Monday night meeting or whatever, but
he had just come back from seeing Baba in
from
India.
being Baba for quite a while, yeah. And Baba had said he was going to be finally going to have darshan in '69, and of course it was all over my head. Harry was going on, the few things I remember, he was going on like, you have to go straight to India and you have to come straight back. And, you know, and it was all kind of like, seemed a little strange. And, but at the end of the meeting, of course, he boomed out the Pravartagar prayer. And I always say, I didn't know what the hell it was, but it was, I knew it was something. It was, now I know it was Baba's presence, you know. Baba's presence was in the room and his power. And it was just so overwhelming beyond anything I'd ever experienced, you know, in that presence and power, that I was just kind of dumbstruck. And then we went to a meeting, these two fellows and another fellow. They said I could come and stay at their place overnight. We went to a coffee shop rather. And the third fellow joined us, who I found years later was Michael Mathias. Tony's reacted. And a lot of you probably knew Michael Mathias. He was quite the character and energetic and everything. And anyway, one of them had a Baba button on, of a young Baba. And they were telling me about Baba, I guess, and I was gazing, sort of looking at Baba's picture, and Baba just dropped a veil or two. And it was like I recognized him, inwardly, very deep, deep, deep inner recognition. And I couldn't stop gazing in the picture, and they kind of noticed and got quiet. And so then I spent the night at their place, and they had all these big black and white Baba posters. And so I was trying to, let me connect more, but it was too much. I couldn't really take it in. And I went on my way. So that was like the seed, and it was, and then some Baba books came to me a couple of years later. And the next thing that happened was after Woodstock. I didn't see any of the Baba stuff at Woodstock. But afterwards, two friends who were there said, "Oh, you might like this. I got this at Woodstock." And they gave me the "Don't Worry, Be Happy" card with the universal message on the back. So now I had something I can read and picture Baba to meditate on. And then I got Listen Humanity. And then another friend that same summer actually said, "Oh, if someone gave me these books, maybe you'd like the discourses. This is in Oneonta, a little college town." So these things were just falling into my lap in a sense. I wasn't looking for them. Yeah. And so then it took a couple of years of just, let me figure this guy out.
Yeah.
And of course, Baba was just there. His eyes, pools of love, is just beingness, just, a mirror into the divine, really. So by 71, I realized that Baba was it for me. And then by 73, I came to the center first time.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. And look at just wandering just a night in New York, doing nothing, sitting on a church steps, and Baba arranged all this.
Yeah, it seemed so, random at the time, but.
Yeah, beautiful.
But yeah, that Tony had that same but he went in the building. How old are you, Tony? He was younger then, but
yeah.
I was about 12, and my mother took us there. We had to go.
Yeah.
11 maybe.
Amazing.
But then I went back to that 7-Up machine, and I'm pretty certain at this point that the Baba booth was just across from there, and that I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And the universal message was under a glass, I think, and I was reading things through the glass, and maybe it was Kitty, I don't know, but she was very lovely and very connecting, and she said something, and I read what I read. I thought, well, that's true. That's who God is. But I forgot all about it.
Okay, Gail.
Hey guys, it's an interesting question, and I didn't come up with an answer till tonight. And the reason I'm here is I subbed for Betty because she had to take a cat to the emergency vet. So Baba just gets you where you need to be. What tonight is my parents were athletes. We were an athletic household. We were never children. We were sports fans. Sports fans, get in the car. We're going out to dinner. And but I was taken to church till I was 8, and I very much believed in Jesus. But my dad was an international tobacco buyer, so it meant that he was in 100 countries. And by the time I was in junior high school, he was home 90 days a year, and he was gone on business all those other times a year. And the fascinating thing about him was he never had a nanosecond of jet lag. I mean, he would have 36 hours from door to door, and he'd get home at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to work at 7. And his answer was, you eat when they eat, you sleep when they sleep, you do exactly what to do, and you'll fall in line. So I don't know if it works for anybody else. It did work for him. But he had one positive value that he talked about. I mean, he was negative on the church. He was raised in the church. He was negative on this and that. But because he traveled so much, the one positive value that he talked about was how important it was to know other people in other lands, and how valuable all different people were, no matter where they were. And this was not a progressive household that I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, where Duke is, where Baba was in Duke Hospital. It was, and I mean, some people were, but not in my household. But I remember a few years ago, somebody said something about, they wouldn't want to go to Turkey. And I thought, my first thought was, my childhood thought was, they're our friends. Why would you not want to go to Turkey? I mean, what's that about? And I know that he knew people of all faiths, and he didn't care about faiths, but it was the people that counted. And when I met, oh gosh, I was in India in 2016, 2017, a man named Hassan, who had been there many times. And I said, oh, my dad had such a close friend named Hassan. And I finally came up with his last name. It's Hassan Bey. And he laughed and he said, that's a term of endearment. That's not a last name. It's like we would call VJG, who's here. We call, so it was an honor term, his friend Hassan Bey. And that has trickled down to my kids, who went to an international baccalaureate school as young children. And it's just a value that we've had. And it's one of the things that matters so much to me about the Baba community, is that we come together, and we know we all come from different backgrounds. But every person, I love the beads on a string, because beads on a string says how all people are, whatever they came from, whatever their station in life. And so I really am glad that the one value that he talked about, I guess, foreshadowed in some ways, coming to Baba. I did take 17 religion courses in college, but and I heard about Baba, but it only went in the ear till about 30 years later. Jai Baba.
Yeah, thank you, Gail. Anyone else want to venture out into the high seas here? Go for it, Heidi. Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
I'm usually not here. I usually listen to the recordings. Topic came up. I said, I don't care if I'm in my pajamas. I got to show up here.
We can't.
So, hi, everybody.
Yeah.
I come to realize the hints. I'm thinking about this. That, when you turn within sincerely in any way to know yourself or God as you understand God, you just want some spiritual connection, Baba shows up. And I was looking at this, and it's almost like the story Hansel and Gretel, where they left the little crumbs to find their way back home. And that's how I feel. And I've had a lot of interesting Baba showing up. I grew up in an atheist kind of household, sort of, but I believed in God we were culturally Jewish. My father came here from the Russian army, so it was a harsh kind of environment. But
Heidi,
yeah.
one moment. Something, there's a little bit of distortion that's happening. I don't
Oh,
know
I'm sorry.
if
Can you
it's,
hear me now?
there's a little bit of keep going. Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me now.
Well, there's a little fuzz there, but
Okay, I'll pay attention.
yeah. Okay.
And you know, one of the things that you know, I had to do a lot of work in the household, way beyond my years. And one of the things that helped me keep my sanity was I started to keep a journal, even as a young person. And I would think, what really, you know, is this about? And the thought would come to me as I was writing, write about everything that happened, just to get my feelings out. And the thought would often come to me, oh, there you are. Like I was, you know, trying to, yeah, I thought it was myself, but it kind of wasn't me. I didn't know. And then what happened was my father signed us up, 11, I think I was 11, for this socialist Jewish school. And I thought I was going to die. I'm not going to this shit. And I was, you know, and we had to go on a Sunday. And I thought, I know what I'm going to do. Test out of this. Because when the first class, they taught Yiddish language, which was my first language, and history, Jewish history. So I thought, I'm going to pass out of this. I had to go for a couple years. I passed out of it. Here's the connection to Baba, though. So I passed out of it, and one of the teachers, she felt so sorry for our family. We were poor. My father wasn't socialized. My mother was isolated, American and funny. And she came to us when I said, I'm leaving. I'm done. I graduated, done, passed. She said, wait a minute. She talks to my father. She gives him this brochure for camp. And she said, maybe your kids would like, I was 12. And I took it home, and I knew my mother would help with it, and she did. We got a scholarship, a United Way camp, to College Settlement Farm Camp, Quaker camp. Well, it turned out that that camp was a Bible lover camp. You see? Now, I didn't know it at the time, but Bob Brown worked there. A bunch of Sufis from California were always there. And I had no idea. I just knew I loved this camp, and when it was exposed to Quaker service on Sunday, I went nuts. I was into gospel music anyway, and we, you know, sung a lot of music, and I just felt God was there. So then, you know, I experimented with the drugs and LSD and stuff. I was a teenager, and I said, I'm tired of this stuff. I gotta, maybe I can be a junior counselor at College Settlement Farm Camp. I had this thought, and one day, my friend went to a Pete Townsend concert, and I couldn't afford to go. And he came back the next day to visit with me and tell me about the concert, and he had a Baba button on. Wait, whoa, what's that? He had lapels. I don't know. And I said, well, let's go to the library. Tell me about the concert. I want to Xerox the button on the library Xerox machine. He said, what are you talking about? I said, I want the button. I want a copy of the button. Walk into the library, I swear to God, and these two kids, and one of them visits the center a lot now. I'll mention his name, he won't mind, Sheldon Herman.
Sheldon, yeah.
He's walking, and he sees the Baba button. He says, that's Mayor Baba, that's Mayor Baba. And he's about 12, I guess I was about 16, maybe. I said, well, wait a minute. And he comes talking, he said, you know, you can find out about Baba at College Settlement Farm Camp. Well, I just started to cry. I said, I know that camp. I love that camp. So we go to the library, and we get the button, and I said, this is it. And I saw Baba's picture, and I just knew he was for me because I was for him. I just felt it. And I wrote to the camp a year later as a junior counselor, and there was a lot of Baba lovers who were counselors there, but one was from California, and I still write to him now. It's almost 60 years. And he gave me all the books and stuff about, you know, about Baba. That's just one little crumb. You know, look at your life, you see he had you all along. And when I was in a relationship, getting divorced, and it was a mess, and I was saying, Baba doesn't, what's he doing this to me for? He doesn't love me anymore. And I was collecting pictures back, and I swear I found this picture, and I never looked at it before. It's a baby picture of me, and in the corner, I don't know if you could see it, is a little picture of Baba with long hair. It's like a little silhouette.
Move it toward you a little bit.
It's right here. See? To me, that's Baba. Right
Move
there.
it toward you a little bit farther. Move it toward you a little bit farther.
I put that picture there, but I'm talking about right here.
Yeah, right.
The gallery's in the way.
Since 1954, and I said, wait a minute. And then, so this is what I'm talking about. It's like nobody's special. The deal is, it's like Darwin says, to me, the deal is this. You have an inner life, you try to do the best connection you can, and you do your service in the world. I sometimes didn't even think about Baba during the day. Next time that happened in between many times, you know, jobs, ships, Baba communicating. And that's what I meant to say is like he gives us these little hints, and it's like a little game for us to pay attention. And I remember I was working many years later. What happened? So it's another, and Bob appeared again. Here, I'm working, and they're killing me at work, and I let them kill me because people would be homeless if I didn't do my part, people's jobs, and I'd come home, lay on the sofa, and my eyes would hit the wall where the fireplace is. One day, I'm looking, my eyes went in one of the stones walls, and I said, wait, is that Baba coming out of the stone? No way, I'm going crazy. I'm hallucinating. Nope, sure enough, I don't know if you can see it, but it keeps getting deeper and deeper. I took a big picture of it.
Oh, right.
And this started happening in 2013. I'm not real technical, but I have pictures of the different years, and now it's much more prominent. So I don't say anything to anybody. My husband's not, official Baba lover. I thought, you better keep this to yourself. This is nuts. But I was just taken, like, he wants me to do what I'm doing. He's there for me. I felt so alone, even though I felt connected. So Baba shows up if he's there. We just are. Does he? Sometimes I have to be that desperate and torn down to see him, to see he's right there. It doesn't have to be that way, but for most of us, we get knocked on the head, And so, the thing is, to me, just be aware. He's speaking to us. He's communicating, and he's showing up all the time. I've never even been to India. Every time I tried to go, I've been, and I have everything ready, and work. I lost my job, then I had to take a job. I always had to work, and I would be so upset and devastated. And I remember someone said, well, you can go to India on the internet. And I didn't know how to do any of that. One day I tried it. And a couple of days before that, I happened to be a donation in a Goodwill, a thrift store. And I saw this material. I didn't like it, the colors. It was dark maroon and gold, like gold crowns on it. But I knew it was Indian. $2, big. I took it. And when I went on the internet, I said, oh, this is so neat. You can go to the Samadhi, like on the internet. And the same material is covering Baba's Samadhi. So he's telling me, don't worry about, for me, see, I think the messages are unique for all of us.
Yeah.
Me, it was, don't worry, I'll come to you. You do what you have to do in your heart. Be of service in the way that I planned you to be. Be aware of it, and I'll come to you. And he has. Why? I don't know, but it's wonderful.
Yeah, beautiful.
And he comes, he comes to all of us. He's with us. I remember when I was a kid, just knowing about Bob after the camp story, I started collecting Baba books and pamphlets, and Kitty gave me a lot. And I went to a neighborhood, an Indian neighborhood I knew in West Philadelphia. We had a Baba bookstore there. And I wanted the book Civilization or Chaos. You couldn't get it anywhere. My friend Robin was with me, and we found an Indian store, and I said, let's go in. And it was isolated and it was dark. And she said, I don't want to go in. I said, no, I'm going in. So the owner came out, and I said, do you have a book, Civilization or Chaos? And he said, well, you have to go in the back, all the way in the back, and look in the book bin. I don't know what we have. Go in the back. So my friend Robin says, I'm not going back there. I said, well, I am. So I went back. And I had to put my whole body in this big box, and I'm digging the box, and she said, you're crazy, we need to leave. I said, no, let me find it. Well, I pulled it out, one copy, I still have it, $4, Civilization or Chaos. And I knew Baba was there. Baba was playing a game. Even then I knew he was, and then we didn't have money to get home on the L. We needed 5 cents to get a bus transfer. And there we're walking, sitting in front of the Baba bookstore. Friend's upset, and I'm saying, don't worry, it's going to work out. And I said, look, there's 5 pennies on the street. There it is, there's the 5 cents, and we went home. I mean, it's I can go on and on. I'll be quiet. Everybody else has stories too. But the point is that, the crumbs, he gives us these clues, they're all around us. And that's why I think silence is so valuable. Silent just for even a minute with Baba, because like the clues pop up, you can over here, I'm right there, I came over here, these little precious moments of affection and care that he gives us all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Heidi. Beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll tell you a little of my story. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, which was a very beautiful part of the country. Had an idyllic childhood, but almost no exposure to religion. I mean, we were basically the heathens in the neighborhood, but when church was over, all the kids came over to our place because we were very fun-loving and inclusive, even though we weren't religious at all. I mean, my dad was, looking back now, a seeker of truth, but he didn't care for religion at all. And we would, after dinner, we would talk, we would discuss many things, for an hour or 2 hours after dinner. But in all the years, no one ever in my family talked about God or spirituality or religion. I don't know, it just never happened. My mom, she had the companionship of God, but and you could see in her eyes that she there was there's a different way of looking at things, and that was in her eyes. But she was so indoctrinated in religion that she was not going to push us at all to go to church or anything. And so I had my only brush with religion or church back then was on the summer between my 3rd and 4th grade. My brother and I went out from the Northwest to the Midwest to spend the summer with my mom's parents. My grandfather was an atheist, and he was pretty forthright about that. But my grandmother, she was a very kindly woman, and she had the companionship of Jesus. I mean, I'm saying that now. She had something. But anyway, my brother and I wound up going to church. Now, we had not gone to church, and it was so solemn and serious in there that we had to do everything to keep from laughing. I mean, it was like we never had encountered anything like this. These ladies would be up there and they would say, "Oh, what a friend we have in Jesus!" And oh my God, our favorite time was when everybody kind of, bowed their head in prayer, and we would pop our heads up, and we would have the whole place to ourselves. We were really free then. But anyway, the odd thing is, before I came back to to the Northwest, my my grandmother gave me a
Jeff,
mustard seed.
Jeff,
Oh yes. Oh, Prashant. Charlie Grant.
hi, Jay
Hello.
Baba.
And
Hello,
Charlie
Jeff.
was
Jeff,
that?
this is Prashant here. Prashant Repare, yeah.
Yeah. And your dad is there in the
Can
hospital?
you see me? Yeah, you want to see him? He wants to see you.
Okay. He met Baba way back and from I'm not Nasik, but the other place. Yeah, so let's show me Shaligram.
Baba, Jeff.
Hello, Jai Baba.
Jay Baba. Wow, you're still in the hospital.
Yeah, he got out of the hospital today. We brought him again for a checkup.
Yeah,
So he was remembering you.
beautiful. His parents both met Baba. Is Pushpa there at all, or?
No, she's gone home now.
Yeah.
In fact, yeah, she went home about an hour back.
Yeah, Shaligram was with Dr. Deshmukh a lot in Nagpur for many, many years.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be there, Baba willing, on around the 12th or 14th of October.
Hope to see you. Yeah, Shalik also would be wanting to see you when you're
Okay.
here.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, good. Thank you
Please
for
pray
coming
to
on.
please pray to Baba for his good health.
Yeah. In fact, at the end, we'll focus on him. He was the head of the center there in Nagpur for many, many years during Baba's time. Anyway, I'm just going to go. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go on with my story. So, anyway, so my grandmother gave me this a little glass ball with a mustard seed in it, and she quoted the Bible. It said, "If you have faith in a grain of mustard, you can move mountains." And I thought, wow, if I ever have to move mountains, I've got this thing. I kept it in my front left pocket. But when I came back from being with my grandmother into the 4th grade, I felt Jesus was watching me wherever I went. And he was very loving. He wasn't at all, judgmental or disapproving. He was entirely loving. And I, on my way to school or out on the playground, I just felt him watching me. And I thought other kids must have had this experience because they'd been going to church, and I just, I didn't really go until I was, there in the 3rd grade, between the 3rd and 4th grade. Anyway, but then I got into school and sports and everything. I totally forgot about this experience. No, and so I went through junior high and high school. I didn't really think about God. I was, if you were asked me, I would say I would have been agnostic. But then in my just before my senior year, I had the feeling that I was going to have a relationship with this particular girl. I guess we'd call ourselves boys and girls back then. And sure enough, on my senior year, she was in the school. And so we had a great very loving relationship, um, and pouring in. When you're in high school, you can put so much imagination and creativity and fun lovingness into a relationship. It was a platonic relationship. We just kind of enjoyed hanging out together. And we would, go all sorts of different. I say this because it foreshadows my relationship with Baba. We used to go places and there are beautiful forests and waterways and everything. And one thing that we would do is either she would call me or I would call her, and we would meet like in the evening or early morning, and she would take off from her place on foot, and I would go from my house, and it would be a couple of miles away, and we would meet. But after some time, after some months, when we would get within 15 feet of each other, we would go into this other dimension, a dimension of love. And it was timeless and spacious, and we would just, there was nothing spaced out about it. It was very real and everything. We walk around and be in this. And I didn't connect that with God at all. I just thought this is just a deeper aspect of the human heart. And so, but I got that experience. And then at 18 I went off. I had not just two, but a number of truths about myself. They might have been called intuitions, but we didn't have any words for these things. But there were two of them. One was that I was going to have a very blessed and fortunate life ahead of me. And the other one was what I was looking for, I would find in New York City. I mean, I didn't even know what I was looking for, but when I applied to colleges in the East Coast, I got admitted into Columbia University, which is in New York City, so I chose to go there. And so I went, at 18. There I saw how the other half lives, New York, and I saw the other half of me, which I became, after years, very depressed. I enjoyed it initially, but I became very depressed because I became obsessed with wanting to know the purpose of life, not just a theory or a belief of the purpose of life. I had to actually experience the purpose of life, and it was not happening. And so I really struggled. And then in the fall of 1967, when I went back to college, I could not find a place to live. And I was just kind of at the lounges in the dormitory. I was just kind of going from sofa to sofa and trying to elude the night watchman and everything. I could not find a place. It's hard, because it's a huge, there's a lot of students coming in there. So but eventually, after a couple of weeks, I found a notice someone was needing a roommate. I would normally like to be with some of my buddies, but it was not possible. So I answered this place, and I went into this place, this apartment, and the moment I went into this place, I went into a state which I called at the time happiness for no reason. I was happy for there was no inner reason for it, no outer reason. Nothing could touch this state of happiness. And I found out many, many years later that in the apartment next door was Tex Hightower. And there was just a wall. I mean, he was just on the other side of the wall. And I must have been picking up. He'd been with Baba since the late 40s, and he was one of Margaret Craft's dancers. He met Baba on all the occasions in the 50s. He's the one with the dancers that carried Baba around in the lift chair and went to the East-West gathering. And so I must have been getting a contact high from, through the walls. I was picking up. So then in January of '68, I took a painting course, not academic, but kind of an elective painting course, and you probably heard this. But I was taking, they had the class painting these boring still lifes, but a guy a couple of easels over was painting this big smiling face, and it was a guy named Donnie Silverblatt. He was a Baba lover, and he got somehow permission. You know how Baba people can kind of do things like that. He had a permission to paint Baba as a part of the course. And so one day he asked me to go to a Baba meeting. I've talked about that, but just to say briefly, I went in there really not knowing hardly anything about Baba, but at the end of the meeting they would have a minute, 3 minutes of silence. And I closed my eyes, and they asked, Baba was still on earth. Baba was there in India, and I closed my eyes and I said, well, they asked us to think of Baba, and I closed my eyes, and I didn't even know who he was. But at one point, I just said, well, I'll just open my eyes. It's only 3 minutes of my life, and I'm looking around at mainly older people. But there was a large photograph of Baba at the front of the room, and I looked up, and his eyes came alive, and I knew the love in his eyes is the love that I suspected that was at the core of all of life. And Baba's eyes came alive, and I knew that that he was God, and my whole life was meant to be lived for him. and then, still in that 3 minutes of silence, Baba suddenly came out of the photograph, and he was right before me, and I got to look into his eyes, and there was no bottom to the love in his eyes. It went on forever. And so anyway, that's my story. Oh, I should say this, that after I left that meeting and I came down on the, there in Manhattan on the streets as the theater crowds were emptying out, I felt Baba watching me wherever I went. I mean, it went on for months. It was that, and it was the same one who had watched me when I was there in 4th grade. And I knew that Baba had been Jesus from that, even though at the time I didn't know Baba had made that claim. But it was the same loving presence, same one watching me. So that was my little sojourn with Baba. Yeah. So, anyway, anyone else have these little, for those who just came in late and didn't hear the reading that we had at the beginning, this is about any kind of experiences in growing up that foreshadowed your future life with Baba. Any hints, not necessarily, they could be connected with Jesus or spirituality or something like that. So we got
Mary Sue.
Mary Sue. Hey, we're talking about Virginia here. Roanoke. We can't hear you yet.
I know.
Ah, God, we got you.
Am I done now? Can you see me?
Yeah, we see you.
Okay, because I'm in a very strange little place here. There's not much light. Anyway, I was big into Jesus at one point. I was hanging out with this guy that would be ultimately my first husband. And he had been going to W&L in Virginia, but he graduated and then started grad school in North Carolina. And when he was in grad school in North Carolina, he became a good friend with this guy named Eddie Middleton. And Eddie Middleton was very charismatic kind of person, and was very into Jesus. And Peter, my husband, had been raised as a Catholic, so he was not very into Jesus and had not been, but through this contact with Ed Middleton, he got a lot more interested in him. And, you know, I had been raised as a Christian in a Methodist church, which is very bland. I always liked to be able to go to services at the Catholic Church because that appealed to me more. That had the trappings and the saints and all of that. So we became Jesus freaks through this friend, Eddie Middleton. And that name might seem familiar to some of you.
Anita Middleton?
It was Anita Middleton's brother.
Wow.
Which I would not know for a number of years. I came to the Mayher Center the first time in 1974. I was pregnant. I was not married to the person who was the father of the baby. And I needed to work some stuff out. And so I came with some friends of mine from Hollins University and came to the center for the first time and was kind of, I don't need a bunch of people telling me what I need to do, da 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 da. And Baba just smacked me hard. And that was the way I got to Baba. And I found it very interesting. It was several years before I met Anita Middleton.
Who's a longtime Baba person.
Yeah. She
How did you actually kind of hear about coming to the center?
I think that must have been through Jerry Hodgen.
Okay.
Jerry Hodgen was teaching at Hollins University. I was no longer a student there, but I can't remember all the friends that we had in common, and I met him through that, and that was
how you heard of the center.
Mimi. This is such a long, convoluted story. I'm trying to remember what Mimi's last name was then. She's Mimi Hay now.
Yeah.
Whatever her last name was then, we came with Jerry to the center for the first time. We were roommates in Lantern, I believe. And, I had a lot of devotion to Jesus once that was awakened in me. And I think that was kind of laying the groundwork for getting to.
Whoop, we lost you, Mary Sue.
Okay. You fell back. I have a cat that walked through and knocked everything over. Okay. Let me get settled in here again, because this is a very dicey setup anyway, at best.
Yeah.
So anyway, at the point that we went to the center for the first time, I was like very into Jesus. That was my thing. I had not been raised to be very into Jesus in the way that I was raised. It was just Sunday school and church, which I hated. But you had to go. My mother made us go. My father never came at Christmas. That was about it. He would come at Christmas for church. And anyway, so I came to the center primarily because I was pregnant. I wasn't married to the guy. I needed to decide whether or not I was going to actually have this baby or not. And some friends had just said, just go down there and think about it, and you can kind of figure that out. And that's my son Raphael, who you've met.
Every child is a child of God.
Yeah, yeah. But the experience of being at the center and going to Baba's house, all of that just really, Baba had me. Baba had me ever since then. So
beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing this. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
I've been working on the sidelines for a long time, so.
Yeah. No, there are people from all over. We got it, from India here, and California, even Seattle, Washington. Okay, anybody else want to share a little bit of their intimations, their foreshadowing of Baba early in their life before they even knew of Baba? Oh, looks like Robin.
Yeah, I was also brought up in basically an atheistic family with no religious background or anything like that.
Can we see you, or are you?
Well, can you see
There you
me
are.
now?
Yeah, good. Yeah, perfect.
So I remember, and I didn't remember this till several years ago. When I was about 5 years old, there was an old lady in the neighborhood in New Jersey where I was growing up, and she would invite me and a couple of the kids into her dark little living room and give us cookies and milk and tell us about Jesus, who I had never heard of. I didn't know anything about anything. And she gave me these, I guess like 4x6 beautiful color pictures of Jesus, about 5 or 6 of them. And I just loved him so much. I didn't know who he was. I don't remember anything she said about him or anything like that. And then my mother, she was very tolerant, but she didn't like religion at all. She didn't, say anything to me about it, but she said, I don't know that lady that you've been going to in her house, and I don't feel comfortable with you going there, so I don't want you to go there anymore. So I stopped going, and I guess I showed her the pictures. I was just dripping with love for him, and I probably put them under my pillow, and eventually they just disappeared, and I never saw them again, and I never remembered that until not that long ago. But like I would see pictures at Easter time, like a movie of Jesus carrying the cross, and I felt like I was there. I mean, I just like reacted so much watching those movies, just once or twice, and I didn't know why or anything, but I just had such a strong reaction to it. And I kind of went through my life, and also certainly as an older teenager, I just couldn't figure out why we were here, what the heck was going on. Well, I do remember when I was really little, knowing that we were here to love each other. And that's all I knew. And I looked around and I thought, but these people don't act like they know that. Like, what, they're not doing that. They're arguing about this or that. That's not what we're here for. And then I guess I kind of forgot that over the years, basically, but not completely, but it just sort of blended away into, whatever was going on in life. But I got really depressed as an older teenager. Partly it was just personal, not feeling, successful, or like I was measuring up in a lot of ways and stuff. But I just didn't get what was going on here, because it didn't make a whole lot of sense. It didn't fulfill anything deep enough or something. But it's funny, Jeff, because I think I had told you I lived on 119th Street in Amsterdam Avenue. And I had a roommate that she was with my brother in Cornell, and she had an apartment there and was going to law school. And I moved in with her, and I worked in Midtown, but then I got a job at Columbia in the graduate mathematics department just as a secretary. But I just, feel like I know you and probably Adele and people were around there and stuff. And I just didn't know. I was just lost. I didn't know what to believe. But I would go to church with friends. I was always trying to find something. And I'd go to church and I'd have these like exalted like experiences and feel so close to something. And I thought, well, everybody must have just felt that, like, holy cow, this was fantastic. And then we'd walk out and people would light up cigarettes and start telling dirty jokes. And I thought, wait, I don't think they just had the experience I had, because they're sure not acting like it, But there were a whole lot of things along the way that, made me ready, I guess. Although I started believing in all kinds of different Eastern things, started reading Alan Watts and Ram Dass and, Yogananda and all that kind of stuff. But everything I got into that I came to believe in, I'd get so excited about it and think, oh my God, I found, what I'm looking for. But then somehow it wouldn't hold up. And so I was pretty discouraged and depressed. And then when my friend Jean read Listen Humanity and got so excited, I thought, well, I'm not going to believe in anybody. I wanted to hear all about it. And I started reading about him, but I wasn't going to believe in anybody anymore because it was too painful. But I would say his name, like I'd walk on the beach and be saying Baba's name. And I'd pick up like a beautiful, like driftwood horse head. I'd get all these gifts, and I don't know why I was talking to him if I didn't believe in him, but I was. But anyway, it goes on from there. But
but Robin, your mother figures in.
Well, she sure does. She told me about Baba probably 69 or 70. I don't really know when it was. And I did not react to it, and I didn't remember it, what she said to me, until Mani said to me when I was in India in 1981, she said, who was your link to Baba? And I was still resisting believing in Baba, even though I was there. I had been here to the center in 79 and loved it. And I had experiences with Baba's picture and all this stuff, but I still was not going to believe in anybody because I didn't want to get that disappointment again. So anyway, she said to me, who's your link to Baba? And I said, my link to Baba? I don't know if I have a link to Baba. And I said, I guess if I have a link to Baba, it's my friend Jean. And, she'd spoon feed me all this stuff on the phone 15 times a day with the next thing and whatever. And then I just had a total memory replay of what my mother had said to me on the phone. And I had not remembered it. I knew she had mentioned him to me when I saw his picture and when Jean mentioned him, but I didn't remember it. And then all of a sudden I remembered it. Now I remember it forever. And my mother had said to me, Robin, all these hippie kids are coming back from India and places like that, believing in all these false gurus. But this Meher Baba, he's the one, you'll see. And she said it twice with conviction. And I said, Ma, I could see me saying something like that to you, but I know you would never believe in such a thing. What in the hell are you talking about? And she said, I know, but you'll see, he's the one. And then I never remembered that until Mani asked me
wow.
what my link to Baba was. And
later or something like that, right?
Well, it was 81, so it was probably 11 years later, something like that. And when I was leaving, and I told Mani, I said, oh my God, I just had that, this is what happened. This was the first person that ever told me about Baba. And she said, oh, that's nice, when I was leaving, she said, now you say hello to my sister for me. And I said, what? She said, your mother, your mother. And so when I got home and I told my mother word for word now what the conversation was, and I said, do you remember that? And she said, well, I guess I sort of do. And I said, but how did you come to say it? And she said, I don't know, maybe somebody mentioned him that day or showed me his picture or something. I said, but Ma, you said it with total conviction. And she's totally an atheist, you know. And then, so that was 81. In 86, I brought her to the center with 2 of my kids. And oh gosh, she had all kinds of great experiences and had this whole connection with Bobby and Bernstein. And it's just a whole long story. And the song, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, which she used to say all the time. And here it is being acted out on the stage, you know, with big banner and everything. And she had other connections with Bobby. So anyway, 2 years, then we went to a Northeast gathering and some birthday parties. And then 2 years later in 88, she came back again and was sitting by the lake on the bench between the lake view kitchen and the lake cabin. And my son David and I had walked over to the library and we come back and she's sitting there. She said, I'm just sitting here and I looking at the trees and the water and I know there's a God and I know Mayor Baba's the God man. Wow. And then Kitty and Jane drove up right behind her and she went and told them about it. She said, I guess Baba's been hidden deep, deep within me all this time. And now I guess I'm ready for him. And Kitty says, oh no, darling, now he's ready for you. And then Jane Haynes said, this must be making Robin really happy. And of course, I didn't know anything about it. But when my mother told me that, I just started bawling. I was so happy. I couldn't believe it. And she fell in love with him almost like a lustful teenager. My mother was a character.
Your mom was great, really.
She was a real New Yorker, and she had a very broad sense of, and very tolerant of everybody. And she was fun.
Like Margaret Pratt.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe we should make this the last one. Well, we don't necessarily, but it's for those on the East Coast and Jacima who has to work and some of the people. But we've got
Jeff. I had I put my hand up same time as Robin.
Yeah, I was intending to you that you were next for sure.
Largely because I feel like Baba gave me a personal invitation to come tonight to this meeting. I didn't know it was happening. I was watching a very heartful presentation on 60 Minutes tonight on September 11th, 2001.
Yeah.
And I was reflecting on hearing of that and reflecting that I was with you at Mehrabad.
Right.
The towers were collapsing. I was coming down the hill. It was a little after 8 in the evening, and Dr. Ann and I had been doing evening rounds with folks that needed medical attention. And we'd been with Gulu and Jalu checking on them. And we were almost down the hill when Julie Lee's son, who was about maybe 14, came up the hill to tell us that, what was happening in New York City. And I went into the dining room where people were having dinner, and you came out and said, I'm going to get a bite. Let's go over to David Finster's. He has the only television at Mehrabad. And you and I and Sheila and David sat there and watched the second tower come down, etc. But I see that Baba has an even more focused on him reason to invite me tonight. Anyway, so I'm here because of thinking of you and thinking, oh, I wonder if he does, if this is one of the late nights with Jeff, and it is. So I usually don't share, especially publicly, recorded, etc. These kind of stories, but I feel like Baba invited me to share tonight. I had many pre-Baba nudges early in my life, and pretty much as long as I can remember, before I actually came into his embrace. Probably the first one was in the second grade, when my parents and I and my brother had just moved to Anaheim, California in January 1955, a little bit, about 6 months ahead of Disneyland opening there for the first time. But that Disneyland's irrelevant. But that summer when it did open, Nancy Rudolph did 2 doors down. Her family, I was in the Presbyterian church, which is rather rigid and not nearly as emotionally involved with God as the revival camp that was at the edge of town with these big tents. And they took me for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. Every day we'd go out and celebrate God. And I'm 7 years old, 8 years old, as you know, a second grader, and loved it. And just felt so close to Jesus. And so Jesus was really my entry to God, this life. And then by the 7th grade, we had to write a term paper. And the teacher said we could write on anything in the world we wanted to write on, but it had to be so many pages and blah, blah, blah. And I chose a subject for my first term paper of Zoroastrianism. In Anaheim, California, in, I don't know, what was that, 1960 or something like that. It was really, really hard to find information on it. But I was keenly interested and drawn to Zoroastrianism, you know, kind of from the get-go. And don't know what happened with that, but I think I got an A on it, as I recall. In high school, but there was no way for me to, there were no Zoroastrians in the area at the time. And so I couldn't do anything further with it. So Christianity was my way of finding God. And I jumped in with both feet. And I remember my father complaining when I was a junior or senior in high school. And he was on the couch one Sunday and growled at me and said, Sunday is supposed to be for an hour of church, Sunday morning, not all day. And he was right. Of the crime of spending all day at church, I taught Sunday school at the 8:30 service. I attended the sanctuary service at 9:45. At 11, I went to our high school Sunday school class. Then I'd run home and have a sandwich at lunch and come back. And something 1:30 or 2, I was moderator of the high school fellowship, both my junior and senior years. So our committee, whatever we had, would meet at, you know, and have our meeting, and then it would be 5 o'clock for the potluck dinner and our high school fellowship actual meeting, not just planning meeting. So I did spend, I've been in love with God since I came in. In high school also, I found God in nature. And because I was in Southern California, I found I found God in the ocean, and I spent as much time as I could. I loved to surf, and I would spend as much time at the ocean. And I considered the ocean my first teacher. It wasn't like anybody ever told me there were spiritual teachers, but mine was the ocean, really a predecessor for the ocean of love. Then my first year in college. So when I went off to college, people would ask me, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I didn't know. And I didn't tell them this, but it did make me think. And I thought, well, what's important? And I thought, God is important. So and the only way I knew to find God was through the Christian tradition. So I thought, well, I guess I need to become a minister. So that was my intention when I started college, to get 4 years of college and then go off to Union Theological Cemetery. That's
Cemetery, yeah, right.
in New York City. And that all changed my first year of college, when I used to go for walks in the woods, and I had some kind of mystical experience. And Jeff, what you said about being joyful for no reason was what I experienced when it was like all my concepts of what God is, all disappeared. And it was like Baba was giving me a clean slate. I didn't know his name then, but took away all concepts like a God out there and I'm here and all of this kind of stuff. And I didn't know what to call it, but it was so liberating. And I was so full of joy that I didn't stop smiling for 3 solid weeks. I was just smiling all of the time for no particular reason. And that opened up for me a door. He took away my sort of Western focus, and it opened the door for Eastern thought and Eastern spirituality to enter into my heart. And I felt very, very drawn to go to the East. All of my friends, everybody wanted to go abroad, but everybody else wanted to go to Europe, and I wanted to go to Asia. And so I was at UC Berkeley, and I was accepted into their program for Japan. And that was the only place in the East that the University of California, at that time in the 60s, the late 60s, there were 9 campuses, and they picked 25 students out of those 9 campuses, and I was one of them. And when I was in February of 68, I was doing my junior year abroad in Japan, and I got an inner message. I got an inner order that came. I didn't hear the words, but it came very, very clearly. It is time for you to go to India and find your spiritual master. I'd never heard the term spiritual master, but I knew by that point in my life that I needed to listen to these inner messages that rarely came. And that one was unique in its, you're supposed to do this. And I was an avid student. I loved to learn. So it was a really big deal for me. I dropped out of school. It was like a couple of weeks before the end of winter quarter. And so I finished, I did my finals and finished, and then was made plans to go to India. And of course, I was penniless student, so it wasn't like I had a lot of money. But and I told a friend of mine that I was planning on doing this, and she very much surprised me. I was a hippie and kind of spiritual aspirant from Berkeley, and she was also on the program from University of California. But she was from Davis, which was the Cal campus, the agricultural school, and she was a cheerleader. And it was like it was a very different energy. So I was very, very surprised when she asked me, "Would you like some company?" And I said, and I still do not know to this day, today's her birthday, actually. I don't know why I said this or even what it means yet, but I said, yes, but we'll go through 1,000 hells together. So we went off and we left Japan. So I'm going to make this very concise. Basically, we found a ticket for $99 to go from Yokohama in Japan, stop a couple days in Hong Kong, a couple days in the Philippines, a couple days in Bangkok, and then go down, and we were getting off at Singapore, which we did, to start. And that was for $99, all of that, and all the meals and everything else. And then we hitchhiked through Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War to get to India. And the short version I'm going to give you tonight, because it's late for the East Coast, etc., is that Robert Dreyfuss's tale of hitchhiking the opposite direction through the Middle East and so forth. It seems like a cakewalk compared. There was war going on where we were and where we were staying, all over in Laos and Cambodia. And it was much worse than the US, than anybody in the States knew about. But at any rate, the really short version is we didn't make it to India. Baba, oh, interesting. I hadn't made this connection before. Baba brought us back to the States in '68. He's still in his body. And we left we were living in Laos at that point, teaching English for USAID, for the US government was teaching the Laotians English as part of the war effort. And we became part of it. And anyway, we left Vientiane, Laos on September 11th, 1968. We celebrated in Laos with our friends there, Judy's birthday. Her name was also Judy. That day, and then flew to Hawaii and celebrated her birthday in Hawaii, and then flew to LA, and it was still September 11th. And her mother had a big birthday cake when we arrived back in LA on September 11th. It wasn't that, that fall. So it was too late to get enrolled in Berkeley for the fall. So I was staying with my parents, and I attended. Some of my friends were going to an alternative Christian church. And so I started going to that with them to that. And one day the minister said from the pulpit, "Christ is on earth now. I don't know who, I don't know where, but I know he's here." And one of you could be Christ. I heard that, and it didn't go like, oh my gosh, that's marvelous. It went, yes, I know that to be truth. I know Christ is back. I don't know who, I haven't found him, but I know it's true. And then I started January, the beginning of January in '69, I started my senior year at Berkeley. And I still remember the bench I was sitting on the 31st of January in '69, when I picked up the student newspaper, the Daily Cal, and there was a tiny 1-inch article in the paper, maybe on the front, I'm not sure where, and it said, Avatar Meher Baba has died today to live in the hearts of his lovers. And I said, that's the one. That's who I have been looking for all over the world. And I knew immediately. And there was no doubt. And by Baba's grace, I've never had a moment of doubt. I've always known he's exactly who he says he is. And I've been blessed to live my entire adult life in his beautiful circle of love and companions like all of you. And I found exactly what I was looking for when I went off to college, which was God. Oh. And it was a circuitous kind of way, and I've left out a whole bunch of stuff. But there were many other beautiful earlier signs, kind of like, who was it, Hansel and Gretel that left little breadcrumbs? Or Baba's been leaving breadcrumbs for me till I could get into him by name.
Yeah, beautiful, wonderful. Hey, well, let's see. Elizabeth, do you have one of your poems handy that you could read?
Jeff, I'm sorry, can I just jump in real quick with something that's time sensitive?
Yeah.
Because Liz she was just talking about 9/11. So you may be familiar with this, some people may, but maybe some aren't. You know, there's a photo, Erich passed just before 9/11. And there's a photo of Erich going out with Baba begging on the first day of the new life. If you've seen it, call that to mind. But right after 9/11, the Associated Press posted a photo of the towers coming down and circled a face that they saw in the smoke. And I don't know if you can see this. If you can focus it, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Now the
wow.
face, clearly to me, the face is the same as Erich going out on the new life. But do you see just behind him and above him the other face that looks like the Ancient One picture? Right
in the
right
upper
there.
Right corner?
Right here. So right above where they've circled what I think of as Erich, it's some people were saying it was Christ, but to me it always looked like Baba's Christ-like Ancient One picture. I don't know if you can see it.
Can't quite.
Put your finger on it.
That's Baba's
yes, I
beard,
see it.
and there's the mustache, there's his eyes, there's his hair, and
right
Erich right by his side. And it always felt to me that Baba was showing that he was welcoming those souls that were crossing over at that moment.
Can you point to the very spot?
Well, the spot where Erich is right, the one that they circled, the Associated Press circled.
And then
Baba is right there.
Right above. To the left.
Right above, like here, that's the top of Baba's head, the bottom,
yes, very
the
clear.
eyes.
Yeah.
It's
where is it in as a clock? Is it 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock?
Yes, Yeah, from Erich's face, I would say it's 11 o'clock. Look to the corner of the building and then focus your eyes right above that. Right, I see it very clearly.
It's
And
impossible.
I see a Baba looking down from the upper right corner, sort of sideways looking down.
No, you're looking here, right, Judy? No, I look the corner of the building, okay, whatever this structure is, look right above the absolute corner of the building. Am I right, Tony? Is that?
Yes, absolutely. Once
Yeah.
you see it, you'll never not see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's right. It's right. If I could show you, circle my finger and show you, I would.
It's about half the size of a circle of Erich's face.
No, it's about the same
No, it's the
size.
same size, correct. It's about the same size.
The
Yeah.
It looks like
right eye is sort of obscured by dark smoke.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Yeah.
But Judy sees a profile of Baba in the upper right-hand corner. He's looking toward the border, but his eyes are closed.
Yes.
And looking down a bit. And the top of his head, his forehead goes right up to the border
Yeah.
of the photo. You see it?
Yeah.
And
That's what Judy sees. Yeah.
But this one was often spoken of as being Christ in the but it's the ancient one. To me, it's the ancient one picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is the Christ picture, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I love what it symbolizes, or what you just said. You know, that Baba was inviting 3,000 plus people. You know, into
Yes. Helping them in this difficult crossing over. And then Erich was by his side.
And I've always felt that there was a direct connection between Erich's passing away on the 31st of August and 12 days later, we have 9/11. I can't say what the significance is, but it surely, I feel strongly that there's a very, very deep connection there.
This was actually, if I may chime in just 30 seconds. One of the mandalas actually shared this with us. I don't remember. But every time one of the Baba's inner circle, one of the mandalas in inner circle drop their body, or not drop their body, die, because only Baba dropped his body or Sadhguru. But when they die, there is an imbalance in the whole cosmos because they are holding a very crucial role in the universe. And when they die, there is something disastrous or something with a very big calamities will happen. This happened after Erich, 9/11 happened after Erich died. That big tsunami, you know, that 4 or 5 countries went underwater happened when Aloba died. And there are a few, but my memory doesn't, you know, but anyway.
One of them, the most obvious one to me was when Mara passed, when she was in coma, was when the government in China was sending tanks in, and the people who were demonstrating were putting flowers in the turrets of the tanks. It was like Woodstock, and the love that was there. And then as soon as Mara went to Baba, they went in with the troops and
yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one. Yeah.
Hey, let's have let's have a few moments of silence here, because otherwise Jay Seaman might get fired by his boss tomorrow for being half asleep. Anyway, let's have a few moments of silence, and toward the end, Shaligram, if we can think of him, long-time follower of Baba. Jai Baba. Thank you for all those wonderful stories. And I mean, we got to some of the people, and I'm sure if we ever do this again, we've got enough people to share that didn't have a chance to. And there's some people, of course, who knew Baba since childhood, so they didn't have any foreshadowing of Baba because Baba already jumped into their life. Anyway, so we'll see what happens next week. I'll try to think of a topic. If you folks come up with a topic, and you can, not that I can necessarily do it, but any suggestions are fine, because it's wonderful that we can get here and share our camera angles on Baba. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
Jai Baba.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
very much.
we'll get Elizabeth.
Nazreen.
Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, good. We got, okay. Nasrina's here to, she's the final word, folks.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Jai Baba.
That's beautiful. Now I can go to bed in peace.
Jai Baba.
Okay.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba.
Thank you.